Hey everyone, Tactics here, and today was an exciting day as we had the 30th anniversary of Warcraft Direct stream from Blizzard, and there was a ton of really cool announcements, not just for WoW, but for a bunch of other games. I'm going to give you a quick recap here, give my thoughts, and kind of talk about some of the stuff they talked about, specifically for World of Warcraft. I'm not going to talk about any of the other game stuff, but I will link the stream and the WoW head page I have here that kind of recaps it down in the description below if you guys want to see that for yourselves. One thing also coming today is some new drops here, so you can watch any Twitch channel and I believe even TikTok now, and you can get these mounts in WoW, these things for Warcraft Rumble, and these Hearthstone packs, and that's from watching anyone playing any of those games. So I will be streaming a bunch until December 11th when these drops end. So make sure you check me out. Now, let's go talk about what they actually announced here in terms of WoW stuff. So, as expected here, War Within, they talked a little bit about 1107, not a ton, but they did announce 11.0. So, of course, spoilers there. So, for 1107, this is coming in December. It's coming in December, so next month, very soon. A little bit earlier than some people were expecting. I know I personally was like, it's either coming before Christmas or the start of January. Looks like it's going to be before Christmas. So you're going to be getting that ring potentially for some power. And I'll make a video going over the ring and the power it gives and how to get it and all the other stuff shortly before that patch actually hits to help anyone out who's not really sure what that's all about. And of course, Plunderstorm is going to be coming back in that patch as well. And then we have 11.0, and this has been announced as Undermined. So we're going to be going to the Goblin home city, or city rather, of Undermine. There's no date assigned to this, but if we do a little math, you can kind of see that the expected date would be the end of February or beginning of March. So somewhere in that like 2-3 week period is when this patch would be expected to drop. And as you would expect in the city of Undermine with goblins, there's a bunch of goblin cartels. There's like some story stuff with you picking which cartel you want to sign with. Hopefully they've learned, and there's no player power attached to that. It seems like there's no player power attached to that, and it's mostly cosmetic, so that's cool. There's these really cool ground mounts, these cars, which are customizable. I wonder if that's kind of like dragon riding for ground mounts. That would be really sick, because ground mounts really do feel kind of outdated now, especially with dragon riding, and especially with the fact that, I mean, there's so few zones where you even use your ground mount anyways. I guess one of them is going to be the Siren Isles coming in 1107 initially, but updating the ground mount system after the success of dragon riding, I think, is a really smart idea. So that's cool. And they're going to be customizable not only in terms of how they look, but in terms of their drift acceleration and as well. So not just cosmetic stuff, but actually how the mount functions, which is kind of interesting. Now, of course, this is coming with a raid. It's an 8 boss raid, and again, spoilers for the last boss here, but it's actually going to be Gallywix. Trade Prince Gallywix is going to be one of the bosses in the raid. People assume the last boss. I don't know if that's explicitly stated, but pretty cool. And the little preview they showed for that raid looks super cool. I mean, the vibes of that raid go insanely hard. There's a giant gorilla fighting a robot T-Rex. There's some casino vibes, goblin stuff. I'm the vibes of this patch. I am super excited, if you can't tell. Coming with that raid, maybe as a surprise to some people, is an individual dungeon. So not a mega dungeon here. This is an individual dungeon, and it's called Operation Floodgate here. And again, set in Undermine. Dungeon is kind of a goblin vibes, and it's going to be immediately into the season 2 pool. This was something I was talking about before with mega dungeons, and how I didn't really like how you waited so long for it to actually be relevant to a large portion of the player base, and they are kind of responding that with this dungeon and immediately putting it into the pool, which is really nice to see. And of course, because they kind of want to be thematic with dungeons, they've also announced that the Motherlode is going to be included in this season. So far, that means that we know 6 out of the 8 dungeons included in season 2. You've got the 4 War Within dungeons that we haven't seen yet. You've got the new War Within dungeon in Operation Floodgate, and you've got the returning BFA dungeon in the Motherlode. So it's those 6 dungeons plus 2 more. I was a Motherlode enjoyer back in BFA. I wasn't a big key pusher back then, but I did really enjoy this dungeon. And kind of obvious with the Goblin patch that it was going to be coming back. So I'm excited. I'm looking forward to testing these dungeons, obviously on the PTR whenever that comes. I expect probably the PTR is going to be coming out maybe in December at some point, but maybe at the latest, like in early January. So again, catch me spamming PTR keys. I love spamming keys on there, seeing how the classes change with the tier sets, how everything's looking with the dungeon pool itself. So, and of course, I'll be putting out a new spreadsheet for this entire season as well, alongside video guides. So make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Also coming is a couple new delves. So 2 new delves are coming with this zone, and apparently they're going to be new variations of existing delves, as well as new upgrades for Bran to be collected, the curios. But it does seem like Bran is going to be staying, so we're not getting a new hero instead of Bran to partner with you, which is what I expected it to be. I expected it to be, you know, you'd have Bran, or maybe you'd have the choice between Bran and another hero, and maybe that's where they're moving towards, is slowly adding in, you know, different heroes, and you're kind of able to choose between them. Who knows? But currently in season 2, you're going to be staying with Bran, just with some potentially new abilities, and there is going to be a new end boss. Instead of Zekvir, going to be a new delve end boss. So make sure you do kill Zekvir, get all that stuff done. I've got a video guide going over it on my channel if you want to check that out. But that is going to be going away with season 2. Then combined with all that stuff that they announced for this patch, they've also put a bit of a roadmap here. So roadmap, which, you know, we've gotten used to now with the last few of them that have been released, kind of going through what's coming. We know 1107, we now know 11.1. Like I said, there's these new cartels that you pick between, the new delves, the new mount. Apparently there's some warband UI updates with the camp collection, so potentially maybe new camp screens, which would be super sick. I know a lot of people have been enjoying that. And then 11.15, they've announced some stuff, new content. Nightfall, Horrific Visions revisited. I am very interested in what that means. Obviously, Horrific Visions, for anyone that doesn't know, were this activity at the end of BFA, the last patch of BFA, where basically you would have to collect these entry tokens, I guess, let's say, and then you would be able to do this a limited number of times per week, and it gave some pretty substantial rewards. Personally, outside of kind of being a little bit overly punishing early on and feeling like you were falling behind if you ever failed a run, I actually liked the runs themselves and repeated these quite a bit throughout that last season of BFA. So I'm going to be very interested in what they mean by Horrific Visions revisited, because personally, I think if I'm comparing Horrific Visions to things like I don't know, islands, to things like Torghast, to things like delves currently, I think out of them, the one I enjoyed the most is probably Horrific Visions, with delves being not too far behind. So again, I want to see what this is. I'm interested, so we'll find out. And of course, we're continuing the pattern with 0.7 patches. Looks like this one's going to be on the smaller end, some story quests, some content and system updates. Don't know what that means. And then of the Turbulent Timelines, which is also returning in 1107 as well, which is I believe that's the back-to-back time walking stuff. And then we have 11.2. So confirmed there is going to be a third raid for anyone that was doubting in this expansion. And again, new world events, new dungeon, new raid. And this is the other thing I want to emphasize here. So it looks like we're not getting a mega dungeon this expansion. What it looks like is, instead of a mega dungeon, they've opted to do one dungeon themed around season 2 and one dungeon themed around season 3. So the mega dungeon is missing from this. That doesn't mean they're not going to put a mega dungeon out here. That doesn't mean that maybe this 11.2 dungeon is a mega dungeon. They just didn't say that. But there is no mega dungeon on this roadmap, and it seems instead we're just getting 2 separate, distinct dungeons, which, I mean, I'm not super mad about it. I did kind of enjoy mega dungeon, especially like initially when they would come out and there was the, you know, the various like the speed runs or the deathless runs or whatever to try and get that cool mount. Those are always pretty cool to me. And we don't know what's going to happen. Maybe they have something like that for these new dungeons. Who knows? But I would love to know what you guys think. Are you a fan of having 2 separate dungeons, separate themes, separate everything? Or were you a bigger fan of the mega dungeon? How do you feel about not having a mega dungeon this expansion potentially? Let me know down in the comments below. And on top of this, there's also going to be more Warband updates here, Brewfest updates coming as well, and then a season rewards refresh. Curious what that means. That's potentially interesting. And again, this is going to be coming, it's slated here the start of the summer. Again, you can do a little bit of math here. Somewhere in the ballpark of like 5 to 6 months is where they usually drop these major patches. And so if this one is coming out late February, like a lot of people expect, potentially you're going to be seeing this at some point as early as July, right? So we'll see what the actual date ends up being. Of course, it's kind of we're getting further and further away here, but summer of next year is when they plan to drop 11.2, and shortly after that they're going to be is going to be the midnight expansion reveal, as well as the 11.25 and 11.27 patches. Nothing currently slated for the winter. They do have this interesting banner here again, mystery banner. What does that mean? Who knows? Of course, again, the Plunderstorm banner is here, of course, but will be interesting to see what this means, and also will be interesting to see kind of if they plan to do a season 4, because I expect potentially this means that early 2026 midnight expansion, which would kind of go along with the thoughts that they're maybe doing year and a half expansions as opposed to 2-year expansions. Would be interesting. Again, I'm super interested to see what the timeline is going to end up being. So we'll just have to wait and see, but maybe jumping into midnight a lot quicker than people expect. And speaking about jumping into midnight, they talked about a little secret or a little bonus for players at the end, and player housing. A little teaser about home and home sweet home and lots of other stuff right at the end of the direct, and it seems very, very implied that the midnight expansion will come with player housing in WoW. This has been something so many people have been asking for I don't even know how long. As long as I can remember, people have wanted player housing, and it's probably coming, which is crazy. That is such a big undertaking. And hopefully it's done well. Again, we know literally nothing about it, and I expect we will continue to know nothing about it until closer to this expansion reveal date for midnight. But that is it for this direct. I'm saying that is it. There was a ton of WoW specific stuff in this direct, and that doesn't even cover any of the other Warcraft stuff. So it was super exciting to watch. Lots of great stuff. Let me know how you feel about it all down in the comments below. And again, make sure you stop by my stream over on Twitch to get your hands on all of these cool drops here for plenty of other games. As always, shout out to my Patreons for helping making content like this possible, and I will see everyone in the next video.